Welcome to episode 14 of the Triathlete Hour. I'm Kelly O'Mara, your host and editor-in-chief of Triathlete magazine. This week, we're chatting with Sika Henry, who is trying to become the first female African-American pro triathlete. Sika talks to us about how she ended up with that goal and how she went from being a high jumper in college to a top triathlete. I think a lot of us will relate with her struggles to balance work and perform at a high level. Plus, she had to come back from a horrific accident last year. First, though, senior editor Chris Foster gives us the scoop on the first big triathlon happening in the post-COVID-19 world. Lubbock 70.3 is going off this weekend with 1,000 athletes registered. What does that mean? What will it look like? And how is it even happening? And then he also gives us some tips on how to set up your own self-supported triathlon adventure if you're not one of the people who has any races on the horizon. All that after a short break. If you've been paying attention to what the pros are doing, then you've probably heard about Whoop. Whoop is a fitness wearable that provides personalized insights on how recovered you are and how much stress you put your body through during the day. Each day when you get up, Whoop gives you a recovery score based on your sleep, resting heart rate, and heart rate variability. And the way it works is you wear the Whoop band around your wrist all day. And don't worry, it's 100% waterproof. It even tracks your heart rate while you're swimming. You can then analyze your activity and recovery levels in the app. And you can use features like Strain Coach, which gives you target workout exertion goals tailored to your body's recovery for that day. You can even set to tell you when you've hit your target strain effort for the day, like, okay, that was good, now you can stop. There's also a built-in sleep coach, which lets you know how much sleep you should be getting based on your expected activity level for the next day. And it tracks all your different sleep cycles. Whoop is offering 15% off right now with the code TRIATHLETE at checkout. Go to Whoop, WHOOP.com and enter triathlete at checkout to save 15%. Sleep better, recover faster, and train smarter. Optimize your performance with Whoop today. Okay, this week, our senior editor, Chris Foster, is joining me because I wanted you to talk about some of the research you've been doing, Chris. You've been reporting a story about the first big race post-COVID is supposed to happen this weekend in Lubbock, Texas, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So Lubbock 70.3 is going to be going on this weekend. Just to give it a little background, like I know a lot of people are thinking, wow, an Ironman or a 70.3, with the hundreds of thousands of people or whatever. No. Okay. So Lubbock, Texas is in like Northwest Texas. It's a small town-ish, medium-sized, 300,000 people, home of Texas Tech. So this is not a race in the middle of New York City. Like, obviously, that's a horrible idea. So things are a little more spread out. All right.
Right. It's like kind of in the middle, like lots of emptiness around it. So it's not like we're going into a dense place.
Right. Correct. I mean, like the nearest major city, the next biggest city is 200, 250, 300 miles away. Okay. So people from Dallas aren't just going to take a 30-minute drive over to Lubbock, probably.
But still, this is the first big triathlon happening. It's only, I think, maybe the second major race that's been happening after, all the pandemic, everything getting canceled. So it's still big news. What are they doing that's different? Like, what kind of precautions are they taking? How is this moving forward?
So I spoke to the race director the other day, and she said that they're going to be following Ironman's safe return to sport guidelines,
okay.
Which exceed all of the local guidelines for the area. Just some of the takeaways from that are packet pickup with a time slot that you have to sign up for, a virtual athlete briefing, a rolling start with 6 feet of separation. Grab and go aid stations, no body marking, special kind of considerations for the finish line area. So they're definitely working on it. They're not ignoring the problem. Their heads aren't in the sand.
When you say so 6 feet, like rolling start, 6 feet separation between every athlete or between waves, or that just sounds, because they're going to get, right now they have 1,000 people, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they have 1,000 right now. I don't know if they're going to get a whole lot more than that. The way they described it was they're going to have 3 chutes with lines of people in each of those chutes. And in the line, you'll have to be 6 feet away from the person in front of you. And they'll call off, okay, next wave, next wave, next wave. So obviously there's going to be mixing in there. I don't think they're trying to say you have to remain 6 feet at all times or else you'll be disqualified or anything like that. But, it's the first race too, post-COVID. So I'm sure a little bit of it is going to be kind of an experiment, just seeing what works, what doesn't, and, hopefully it works well.
I mean, for sure, we're going to see what works and what doesn't. You're going to be following up on this. And we'll have a story. So for people who want more information, they can go to our site. You're doing a whole story on it. We'll be following up after to kind of see how it goes too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's a lot of interesting stuff about this race. I think people probably in other parts of the country think this is, unfathomable. But everything that I've garnered from the locals in Lubbock, the mayor of Lubbock personally reached out to the race director and made it clear that, the city is super behind them, super excited. So this isn't just some rogue race director, just randomly running a triathlon. But the area is really excited about it. So. Yeah.
I think as races come back, it's going to vary a lot area by area because you're in LA. I'm in Boulder now. Like, we're not going to be having races soon because our areas have a lot more restrictions. Whereas Lubbock, Texas, they're kind of reopening very quickly, rolling back all those restrictions.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've had pretty low cases. I think Lubbock County is somewhere outside of the top 25 counties in all of Texas when it comes to deaths per 100,000 or even cases per 100,000. So as Texas goes, Lubbock is pretty low. Though we have seen a little bit of a recent uptick for them in the last week, but we're going to kind of follow that.
Right, for sure. And we'll see, obviously what effect a large event has too. I think a lot of people will be following that to see, if there are a spike in cases coming out of that or the big Spartan race in Florida last weekend. We're watching these big events very closely.
Yeah. Yeah, clearly.
But for all the people who don't have races that, who aren't in Florida or Texas or Arizona are kind of the only places having races, they're faced with a few months here of no races on the horizon. So we've been kind of pushing this idea of putting on your own race, self-supported triathlon, we're calling it. And you wrote a big article about that the other day. Tell us, what is self-supported triathlon? What does that mean? How do you do it?
So there's various levels of the self-supported triathlon. Before I get into this too much, in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of long course athletes are thinking like, how can I make this the most extreme possible? But the reality is you could have an hour-long self-supported tri. The challenge being, you have to bring all of your own nutrition. You bring your own hydration. You take everything you need with you. You set up a transition area that's like a car. You swim across, like, say, that lake you've always wanted to swim across. You swim across the lake. Throw your stuff in the car, pick up your bike, ride around the lake.
Right.
A couple loops, whatever, come back, and then head out for your run. So yeah, not only obviously is it going to be physically challenging, but if you start to make it longer and longer, the logistics of it become kind of a puzzle that you might want to solve. You could do a series of swims and runs, and then ride for a while, and then you could even bike pack or something like that. You could have it like be a gravel ride or a mountain bike ride. You could take breaks during your race. You make it more of like an adventure than a race. I think it's kind of a cool thing to do right now, And
you put together kind of like I don't want to say a guide, but how to get started, right? Which we'll link to in our show notes. It's on our site. But what are some of the common questions, some of the tips? How do you get started kind of putting on your own little mini triathlon adventure?
So the first tip is plan, which is usually something that triathletes are already super good at anyway. So just, find a route that maybe is something new to you, outside of your normal training zone. So it does feel like something different. Make sure you have, if you need a camelback to make this work, or, a hydration bladder, or tons and tons of hydration storage, or, a bike packing roll-up bag that you can get enough nutrition in. You can make it pretty cool, but yeah, planning is the big key.
Okay. And I think you were tentatively planning one of these kind of adventure things yourself, right?
Oh yeah. You mean my run?
Uh-huh.
I did it last weekend.
So you did like a self-supported adventure, right?
Yeah. So a buddy and I did this long run through the Santa Monica Mountains, where we ran 30 to 40 miles with everything we needed, and then camped that night, and then continued the run on to try to kind of get the whole thing. And it was a big challenge. Not just physically, but yeah, like, how can I carry everything I need and it's still possible while you're running? So, but it was super fun. It was very hard. Yeah.
So these are the kinds of things, obviously, that people can try now that we don't have races on the schedule. Now that you're not like worried about being fresh for a race soon, you can do like all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It took a lot of preparation to do this, and I'll probably need to recover all week, but But yeah, I'm not in the back of my mind. I'm not like, well, I got this race coming up in 3 weeks, so I need to make sure I'm ticking all my swim, bike, run boxes. I can put swimming on the back burner or biking on the back burner, for a week, while you kind of tackle this challenge. So that's kind of a fun thing to do.
Well, yeah. So you guys should go check out like kind of our guide, our tips on how to do one of these yourself. We're going to be talking some more about this throughout the summer, kind of have some more inspiration, ask you for your photos. If you do your own self-supported try, let us know. A number of readers have already sent in photos, their own stories. They've been putting on, their own Ironmans, their own 70.3s, their own whatever distance you want.
Yeah.
Cool. So you have any other tips then for our listeners out there who are kind of trying to figure out what the next few months look like?
Kind of embrace the vacuum almost. Just kind of, enjoy the forced pause from racing and, do something. We're really good swimmers, bikers, and runners compared to most of the people in the world. So, use that ability, that you've worked on for so many years to, climb a mountain or ride across a mountain range or swim across a bay you've always wanted to do. So have fun.
Have fun. There you go, guys. Have fun this summer. Well, thanks for chatting with us, Chris. And we'll include links to all that stuff in the show notes if you want to find out more.
Thanks, Kelly.
We're triathletes. We like to know how we're performing and how we could be better. We want all the data. And that's where Whoop comes in. Whoop is a fitness wearable that tracks your heart rate variability, sleep, activity levels, calories burned, and most importantly, recovery. Every day, Whoop gives you a recovery score based on how your body is recovered from the day before. So you can know if today's the day to tackle that huge workout or maybe adjust and pull back a little, take an extra nap. Whoop is offering 15% off right now with the code triathlete at checkout. Go to Whoop, WHOOP.com and enter triathlete at checkout to save 15%. Sleep better, recover better, and train better. Get faster right now with Whoop. Okay, this week we're talking to Sika Henry, who's trying to become the first African-American female pro triathlete. Here's my question for you, Sika. A year, maybe it was like 2 years, a year and a half ago, I remember talking to you about, like, you had just upped your training, and you were like, Kelly, I'm so tired all the time. Is this normal? So here's my, are you still tired all the time?
Yeah, I had no idea when you tried to get to this level how much training it involved. It's crazy. I didn't realize until I got my coach, Johnny Karen. I didn't know that people train twice a day, every day. I didn't know. I thought you would at least get 1 or 2 days off a week. And he's like, no, your recovery is that 5-mile jog, easy swim. I'm like, this is crazy. So, yeah. But then COVID happened, and this has been, unfortunate circumstances, but it has been nice having the downtime for sure.
So you've been able to like train more, like kind of get your, I don't know what the word is, but like your systems in place, right? Like your like work on all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. Once races got like canceled and rescheduled, my coach and I kind of made an executive decision that I was going to take just 2 to 3 weeks off completely, not doing anything, because I was already dealing with some niggles and, pains and imbalances and stuff from my crash last year. So we figured, okay, well, if you don't have to race, there's no point in putting your body through all that. Like, let's recover, get healthy, and then slowly ramp things up.
That makes sense. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people are doing right now. Like, I've been hurt and I'm kind of like, no reason to rush getting back.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like when you have these big events on the calendar, you're kind of pushing your body to the limit and you start developing these little nagging injuries and you're praying that you can make it, through the race, and you're just pushing yourself to the extreme. But if we don't have them on our calendar, what's the point of, doing that to yourself? You might as well just get healthy and enjoy the downtime.
For sure. So let's talk about this whole, like, becoming the first female African-American pro triathlete.
Mm-hmm.
One, what does that, I mean, I know what that means, but what that means essentially is that you're trying to qualify as a pro and then race the pro field, right? Like, and you've been pretty close a couple times because there's standards you have to hit, right? To earn your license.
Right. Yeah. I thought last year was going to be a great year for me. I had gotten so fit and I was doing really well in races. I want to say in 2018, the last half Iron I did was Atlantic City, and I was maybe like 7th or 8th or something female overall in the amateur field. And I finally broke 1:30 in the half marathon at the end of the race. And I was like, all right, this is setting me up for a fantastic 2019. And I flew down to Galveston, Texas, and to do the half Ironman there. And you know the story. I got out the water and it was an age group start. So I was one of the last waves. I got on the bike course. It was crazy crowded. I was going over 25 miles per hour. And somebody who decided to pass another competitor didn't look to their left, and it was me. And I swerved to avoid them, which I did. But unfortunately, I hit that barricade in the middle of the road, which sent me flying into the pavement, knocked out, broken nose, lacerated face, 40 stitches. I had to have oral surgery, all that stuff. So my 2019 it was really, really hard. It was difficult, just having that setback and mentally trying to recover from it and decide if I wanted to come back and everything. And then, I did Augusta. I registered for 70.3 Augusta in September. So I figured, all right, if I can get myself back into shape over a 5-month period and give it a shot there. So I did. I put in a really hard effort there. And, you need to be top 3 amateur overall. And I was 6th. So I missed it by a little less than 4 minutes.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to ask you some more about your crash and coming back from that, but you mentioned it here. Yeah, it was pretty, I saw the pictures, it was pretty horrific. And I know you just told us what happened, but in actuality, you don't remember a lot of that. You've pieced that together, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. A lot of people, thank God for social media, because they found me through Facebook or whatever and messaged me like I was there, I saw it. And I was like, oh, well, can you tell me what happened? When I woke up in the hospital, I was in the operating room and I thought I had been in a car crash, actually. Thought I had finished the race and was on my way back to so just how bad I looked, how many injuries and everything I had, I literally thought I had gone through the windshield or something.
Oh,
so when they explained to me that no, it happened on the bike, stuff like that. So it's I've come to accept that, but I don't really remember the crash itself, which might be a blessing in disguise because I was able to get right back on the bike with no trepidation.
Really? So I was going to ask that. I was going to say, how did you come back to the bike? Were you scared? Because after crashes like that, some people, I've had friends who have PTSD out on the road after really bad crashes.
No, it's crazy. I was actually scared I got nervous driving for the first time after my crash. Okay. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Mentally, I was nervous driving, but getting on the bike, no, I started to miss it. And as soon as I got, Cervelo was really awesome. They had heard my story. Dan Empfield had actually reached out on my behalf and told them my story. And they sent me a Cervelo, the P3X. So it was so beautiful. I never had even electronic shifting before. So when I got it, I'm like, I want to take this bike out. And the first time I went out, I rode 60 miles and I wasn't nervous. I think I was just more grateful than anything.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. And I know you and I kind of jokingly debated about, because I was not a fan of rolling starts. I think there should be a mass start for everybody competing. And then after this crash, you were like, no, Kelly, these mass starts are dangerous. It's bad.
Yeah. So for me, the number one, I found the age group wave start I don't know about the most dangerous, but very dangerous for somebody who is competing at a different level. So when I first got into the sport, when I did my first half iron, it was in Eagleman, 2016, I want to say. It was age group wave. And I was in one of the last waves, but I didn't really know what I was doing anyway. It wasn't that big of a deal for me. I just got on the bike course, kind of moved to the right and people were passing me. So, I didn't really think about it. But when you get to the level where you're racing for your pro card and, you're hitting top end speed and going out, being in one of the last waves is dangerous. It's scary because there are newbies like how I was who don't necessarily know the rules, ride to the right, ride on the right, pass on the left. They're slower. Some people are on mountain bikes who are doing their first half iron. So if you're in one of those last waves, it can be a little frightening.
Oh, for sure. I've definitely been there. I do. Yeah. There's probably something to everyone competitive needs to mass start in the front and then it needs to be a rolling if you just want to finish.
Right.
If we were in charge of the sport, Sika.
Right, exactly. And some races are like that. Some have that rolling start where you seed yourself. Right. And I found that the most, I felt the most secure doing that.
Okay. Let's go back to this, your first, so you said you did your first one in 2016. How did you even find triathlon? You started as a runner. I mean, I think you swam as a kid, but you were a runner in college. You were a high jumper. That's not even like a triathlon thing.
No, I didn't even like to warm up a mile. Like, I was not a distance person. My coach sometimes would make me run 3 miles. I'm like, what? That is so long. No way. One of my roommates, she was on the cross country team, and I just thought it was so crazy that she was out running, 10 miles on Sundays. And I had no interest in any of that stuff. But after college, I was working in New York City in the financial industry, and I was working really long hours and not working out and getting out of shape. So I decided to pick up running then. And some of my friends were doing 5Ks and stuff. So I was like, I'll hop in those. And, it's pretty similar story to others. Like, you have a bucket list, like a marathon is on your bucket list. And I tried one. It was a horrible experience. I was like walking at mile, like other people walking at mile 20, puking all over the place. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. But like most people also, I got hooked and I wanted to see how much faster I could get. So that's how I started getting into the long distance running. And then locally out here where I live near Hampton, Virginia. There was a sprint triathlon at the in the Chesapeake Bay, so right at Buckrow Beach, and I saw that it was in 2 weeks, and I was like, hey, you know what? I have a swim background, I have a run background now. Why don't I try this triathlon? So I went to Dick's and I got a mountain bike and I bought a Speedo and some goggles, and I finished. And I was slow; it was like one of the last, but I thought it was pretty cool. It was fun, and again, I wanted to see how much faster I could get.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that's how like a lot of people start. When did you start to be like, oh, actually, I'm kind of good at this. Like, actually, I could be pretty good at this.
Never. I'm still wondering. I am still wondering. Gosh, when did I would say that when I started working with a coach, and I think when I did my first half iron, I find that I do better the longer the distance. Like a sprint and Olympic, I'm just not that competitive. But when I tried the half iron, especially my run at the end where I was able to like move up the field, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And then of course, I think when I started getting on the podium in my age group overall, that's when I was like, all right, I'm getting closer and closer to this. So let's see how competitive I can get.
For sure. Because this goal of, becoming the first African-American female pro triathlete, I mean, it's not like you were like set out with that as a goal. You just wanted to see how good you could be. And then you realized there wasn't anyone else, right?
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yeah, it was. I wanted to see if I could qualify for my pro card. And then I noticed like, oh, that would actually make me the first woman, female African-American pro. So that is an extra incentive to be able to even say that's pretty cool.
For sure. And why do you think it's important? I mean, you and I have talked about this before, other people talked about it, but why do you think it's important for other people to see, an African-American pro or a Hispanic pro or, role models?
I think diversity in general is super important, not only in, sports, but at work, like in corporate offices. And, it can be really inspiring. Like you take Serena Williams, for instance, it inspires even people like me when you see what you're capable of. For a triathlon, because it's so, let's just say it, white, male dominated, there's only 0.5% African Americans in the sport. I think if you see more of us in it and more people of, color in general, more women, it will, encourage other people to try the sport. It's more inviting, I guess, and then for me being an African-American, just to show kids like, basketball, football, those sports are great, but there are other options out there. And just, in order to be able to finish a triathlon, you need to be able to swim. And with, 70% of African Americans who can't swim, it can encourage them to at least learn that life-saving skill.
Yeah, no, for sure. The swimming is kind of one of the larger historical systemic barriers when you talk about, access to pools historically, kind of culturally. We talked to Shauna Payne-Gold, who a couple weeks ago about kind of the barriers to, diversity in the sport. Like, what are they? And I'm just curious, from an athlete perspective, what do you see as why hasn't there been another female African-American? We're not sure if there's a Black pro from another country, but African-American pro yet. What are the barriers that you see?
Yeah. And I'm probably regurgitating what she said. Sure. It's, I think swimming is a huge factor. 70%, as I mentioned before, can't swim. And also just being unaware of the sport. Right. There are so many, the mainstream popular sports that we see on TV. Most people aren't aware of triathlon, especially in the Black community. And if they do, they've seen it on NBC and they're watching Kona, like the full Ironman. They don't realize that there's draft legal and sprint and stuff like that, and that there are other ways to enter the sport. I think that just not being familiar with it, it not being a popular, celebrated sport in our community, we tend to gravitate towards, like, instead of distance running, sprinters, like, oh, I want to try for the track team, I'm going to run the 100, the 200 stuff. So, usually that doesn't translate to, a half Ironman eventually. So I think that, and then, of course, and this isn't just race related, but economically, how expensive our sport is. There's no getting around that, no matter what color you are. So that's a huge, barrier as well, being able to afford, the gear. And if you want to be competitive, sure, you can go buy a mountain bike and hop in a race. But if you want to be competitive, you're going to need, some pretty nice equipment.
Yeah. The bikes get expensive once you want to be at the front of the race.
Yep.
They're pretty expensive. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
And how have you dealt with all of that? I know you work full time, you train full time. How do you deal with all those different pressures?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. It's stressful, but at the same time, I think I've always thrived off of having a lot of juggling different things in my life. I think it also helped that I was a collegiate athlete. So this isn't totally foreign to me. As you know, you were, I think, a college runner.
No, man. I didn't do sports in college. No? That sounded hard.
What? Oh, all right. My bad. But yeah, no. I think it helped, with structure and, balancing academics and then having races on the weekend and traveling and all that stuff. So this isn't totally foreign to me, but it gets really stressful. And even lately, I find being an African-American in this sport and with everything going on with, the protests and lack of diversity, specifically in triathlon, I've had a lot of people reach out wanting to do interviews and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm still working. I'm still trying to train. I have a French bulldog puppy, it's, it's learning how over the past year or two, it's learning how to say no to some things and prioritizing what is most important.
For sure. I was going to ask you, it seems like you're constantly called on to be, come sit on this panel, come do this interview. And I would imagine that also feels like a lot of pressure. Like you're supposed to represent everyone.
Exactly. I mean, and thank goodness, I do have friends like Shauna who, I feel like she's more eloquent than me, and she's, has a PhD and can talk on so many of these issues. And for me, it's just, I have a economics degree, so I don't know how well that translates to, talking about diversity and inclusion. So I'm really just talking about my own perspective, and I want to say all the right things and I want them to be impactful. But yeah, it's nerve-wracking for sure.
Yeah, I can see that. Let's actually talk a little bit about your schedule, because you do work a full-time finance job and you train it's around 15, 20 hours a week. What does your schedule look like? Like, how are you? I mean, obviously we have a lot of readers, a lot of listeners who do similar things, but tell us how you do it.
Oh gosh, I kind of go in like a robot mode, I call it. I won't say right now right now things are pretty calm, right? Because I'm working full time from home. They're
right.
just starting to open the economy up here. So I've been able to work full time from home, which has been really, really helpful. But typically, pre-COVID, I would get up early, like 5:30. I work with a strength coach twice a week, and then I would work. I'm lucky that at my job, we have showers, so I can run, and I have a great trail over there. I can get my run workout in at lunch, and then I go back to my desk. I eat lunch there. And then after work, like 5:30, I leave and I'll go to the pool or I'll hop on my bike. But the majority of my training is, I guess the long stuff is on the weekends. That's really the only time that I can fit it in. I don't live in a bike friendly area, so most of my stuff is done on the trainer, except on the weekends I'll go drive out to the country to ride long. But it's been really helpful. Like I use the Hammer, the H3 Sarah's trainer. So I'm able to do that here. Try to go to bed early, eat healthy, all those little things. But it's not the easiest thing to balance.
No.
But
I mean, I just from my experience, trying to race at that level and work full time is really, really hard. And so, especially the evening workouts.
Yep. Me too. Like morning, if I do something before work and then even on my lunch break, I'm like, okay, but trying to talk yourself into doing a second workout when you're like just tired and you just want to, cook a good meal and have some wine and go to bed, like going to the pool at, 6 p.m. after you've done all that other stuff. It's rough. It makes me question how important this is and if I want to keep doing it. Totally.
Okay. Well, what keeps you, what do you tell yourself at that point that keeps you going?
Oh, I usually call my dad, actually. I'm like, Dad, I'm sitting in the parking lot outside of the pool. I don't want to go in and swim. I've already done, an 8-mile tempo run earlier. And he's like, just get your butt out of the car and go. And what I do is think about how good I feel after I've done it. It's always worth it to me. I might not want to do it at the time, but I never regret it after I've done it. In fact, I'm usually in a better mood. I'm more confident. I'm more I feel like it brings me one step closer to my goal. Mm-hmm. So I say that with each workout that I don't want to do. I'm like, okay, well, if you do this, it will bring you one step closer. So don't skip it. So it's just thinking about stringing them all together. Versus having all these breaks or skipping workouts. So it's like this psychological game that I play with myself.
And then you should eat some candy because that always gets me.
Yes. Yeah. Oh gosh. No, I definitely have some bad habits. I'm like, I'm going to open that really nice bottle of Cab that my mom bought tonight. If I can get through this swim, I can have that glass of Cab.
It makes sense. I think that makes sense. I don't see any problem with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were telling me kind of before we started recording that, with this is a hobby for you. So you aren't planning on trying to make it as a pro into your salary. You're not you just want to see how good you can be, right? That's
exactly.
Right.
Yep. Not trying to make a living off of this at all.
But you do have sponsors. I mean, there have been a lot, which goes back to a whole nother topic, which is kind of there are a lot of sponsors for age group athletes in addition to pro athletes. It's all kind of blurred a little bit.
Right.
But you have found a lot of support, right?
I have a ton. It's ironic given the situation that we're in right now with, the racial tensions and diversity and, inclusion. And I would say that the big sponsors that I've had actually came from the fact that I've been talking about this for a while. It helped. I was at the TBI conference, Triathlon Business International Conference in 2017. Right. Sarah Gross was actually the moderator. And I was on the panel with the president, founder of Black Triathletes Association. Right. And then Flocka, I don't know if you know her. Yeah. So it was there was 3 of us up there and then Sarah was moderating, but we were talking about diversity and inclusion. And I gave my, thoughts on why I thought there were so few people of color in the sport. And then, also my journey, why I wanted to be pro, that I wanted to be the first African-American woman, stuff like that. So, I talked about volunteer work and how important it is, I think, to, get back in the community and, show children how important it is to, know how to swim and stuff like that. So that's actually how I met my contact at Hoka. And then also Zoot, they came up to me. And so it was more so not, we're supporting you because we think you might be fast and like win an Ironman by any stretch of the imagination. And, this was 2017. I was not very fast then. I think I had just finally broken like 5 hours and a half Ironman. So I think that these companies were genuinely interested in helping me get to a level where I could possibly inspire other people or, kind of change the color of the sport. So that's where I would say my biggest sponsors came from. So that's it was awesome. Before all of this stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are genuine companies out there that are interested in this.
Oh, for sure. I think that's true. I think I don't think there's a lack of people that care. It's just complicated. And I know that's also how you ended up doing Kona as your first Ironman last year, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Which used to be more common. It used to be that, you could qualify to Kona at a half or get a foundation, whatever. It used to be more common that people would do Kona as their first ever Ironman. Now it's kind of not that it still happens, but that would be really tough as your first Ironman to do Kona.
I didn't want to do it. They offered me Hoka, Eric Gilson, and he reached out and he was like, because Hoka is the sponsor for Ironman, they're partners. And he's like, we have this extra slot and we know that you're coming back from your horrific crash. You're still trying to get your pro card. And, we have this ticket for you if you want it. And I was like, no. I actually had no interest in doing a full Ironman, ever in life. That was never on my list of goals. When people would ask me about doing a full, absolutely not. I think you guys are crazy. But yeah, I talked it over with my coach and he's like, are you kidding me? Like, that is just a dream opportunity. Like, you can't pass that up. I talked it over with my dad and he was like, yeah, even he was a bit frightened because of my crash, that I would even put myself through that. And keep in mind, the race would have only been 6 months after my recovery. So, my first reaction was no, but I told Eric, I was like, let me sleep on this. I need at least a day or two. And and then I said, yes. I'm like, yep, this really is a once in a lifetime opportunity. How could I pass that up? But I did feel guilty. I didn't qualify. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't qualify for it, I think some people work so hard at qualifying or, they could get in through the legacy program. They've done multiple Ironmans and here I am, somebody who hasn't done one yet. I never planned on doing one. And I didn't want it to feel like a hand-me-down slot. And I just didn't want people to feel disrespected by me getting it. I can't really explain it, but I did have some trepidation towards that and some guilt in terms of having it handed to me. Yeah, for sure.
How did it end up playing out? I mean, did anyone, how did people respond? How was it?
Yeah. Well, I was very straightforward when I said that I was racing at Kona. I have my blog, and after I finished Augusta, because I did Kona 2 weeks after Augusta, I put in my blog that I'm back, I'm recovered from my crash, and Hoka offered me a slot since they were a sponsor, and I accepted it. So so I just put it out there. I didn't try to be dishonest or just, because it's going to come out anyway. People are going to ask, well, where did you qualify for it? But, Hoka was really just interested in my story and sharing it. And, I did the Hoka Ironman, that 3 series that you can find on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. I saw your video.
That they film me. Yeah. So they thought that they could, throw that in there too, and that maybe it'll inspire other people. So hopefully that's what came out of it. That it was somebody that is inspirational through all that suffering and heartache oh God, that was so painful. That race was brutal. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
That race is always brutal, though. I don't know anyone who comes out of it being like, well, it went fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And then especially it being my first full Ironman, I never even swam 2.4 miles before. This is nuts. And then the bike, I didn't realize all the climbing. I didn't realize, I heard it was windy, and I've experienced wind, but nothing like that. I had no idea it was like that. And then, by the time I got off the bike and I got in the transition tent, I just sat on one of those folding chairs and I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm not coming back out. I'm not running a marathon. All you people are crazy. The volunteer came over. Do you want anything? I'm like, I don't know, just put me out of my misery. But, and then the hotel I was staying in was right around the corner from the tent. So I'm like, I just want to go there. But I knew my dad was standing outside and, my family was tracking me and I had this really great opportunity and I didn't want to just let it end there because I was, tired and miserable because everybody is, right?
Everybody's
like I'm not the only one. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, just get out there and at least start walking. And then you'll get into the swing of it. And then of course I went through the first like 10 miles entirely way too fast. In my mind, I thought I could run like a 3:10. Yeah. No. Yeah. It slowly went down to like, I don't know. I think I ran a 3:30 something, but it was brutal.
Yeah. But now you've done it. Are you like, oh man, now I want to do more Ironmans? Or are you like, nope, that was it?
Nope. One and done. That was the Mecca. I did it. No more. Yep. No more.
Okay. So what are your kind of goals left? I mean, obviously the qualification is like a goal, but what do you kind of see as your like goal, your targets is what I'm trying to say, like things you want to hit to get to there. Does that make sense?
To get to my pro status?
Right.
Well, I was supposed to do Challenge Cancun in April. That was like my big first race of the year. And I had planned to try to go after my pro card there. And if I didn't get it, I was going to do Eagleman in June last week. It would have been actually. And then again, that didn't happen. So it's been hard to stay motivated. Like today I did a 60-mile ride and then I ran 5 miles after. And, part of me is like, why am I putting myself through all this? We might not even be able to race this year. But at the same time, if the economy opens up and we can race in the fall, I still want to be prepared. So if Eagleman is a go, I'll be doing that in the fall.
Oh, it got rescheduled.
Wait,
did it? Oh, sorry, that was a question.
Yeah.
Did it get rescheduled?
Okay. I'm like, wait, did it get rescheduled again? Okay, yeah, it was supposed to be in June. So it was supposed to be last week, and it got rescheduled to the same day as Ironman Maryland.
Oh.
Yep. So, but we'll see, and then Challenge Cancun got rescheduled till October, but I don't know if I'll be comfortable flying internationally at that point. So everything is really just up in the air.
Right.
But luckily there are other aspects of the sport that I really enjoy. In fact, sometimes it brings me more joy than the like actual, racing and placing itself. Like I had awesome opportunities this year of speaking at schools that were predominantly African-American, lower income areas. And, I shared my journey through the sport, the crash, coming back, dealing with the trauma and stuff like that. And I enjoy, writing articles and, doing certain interviews with different, like people who are new to podcasts and stuff like that, that aren't as familiar with, why the sport isn't as diverse. So there are other aspects of the sport that I really enjoy besides just, racing and the accolades. Yeah.
That's good because, it might be a little while, right?
Or ever.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
As you were saying that, you made me think talking to kids and kind of like getting them into the sport. What has been the response when you've talked to, kids or I know we recently talked to a bunch of the NCAA kids coming up and a number of them were like, oh, Sika is inspired, right? Like a couple pointed to you. Oh. What kind of reaction are you, do you get?
Yeah. Well, when I say kids, these are
these were little kids, right?
Yeah, it's like elementary school age, and where I spoke, so these were Title I schools, they have been through a lot of trauma themselves. So the whole point is really just sharing how important it is to be involved in like organized sports, the importance of learning how to swim. They didn't know, a lot of them didn't know that you could even swim at that age. They're
really?
Like, oh, we're too young to swim. I'm like, no, you're not. My parents put me in the pool as a baby. So, it's opening their eyes to just, so many things that are out there that hopefully they can have access to. Like people or the company Hoka, they were awesome about giving a lot of free sunglasses and balls and bags and stuff like that. So, I would I would go through my whole spiel, my story, they would learn that a marathon's 26.2 miles. And then, afterwards ask them questions like, how long is a marathon? If they got it right, they got free stuff. So it's educating them, getting them, familiar with the sport and, understanding the distances and stuff like that. So yeah, just making them more aware of, like I said before, that it's not just all basketball and, football and stuff.
Yeah. I know you also said you're donating a portion of like the money you make from that kind of stuff to the Black Marathoners Association, right? Which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. People have come, these companies have come and asked me, well, what should we do? Who can we give to? And I'm so quick to be like, you need to donate and give money and blah, blah, blah. And then here I am, doing some of these interviews and writing and I'm not contributing to the very thing that I'm asking people to contribute. So yeah, I pledged 10% of whatever I make from, any freelance writing or, speeches that I give at schools and stuff like that. So I want to give back too. And I usually make these things public, not for people to pat me on the back, but it makes me accountable for what I've said. I like to feel accountable.
Because you also started out with a grant or scholarship from the Black Marathoners Association, right? Like that's one of the things that helped you early on.
Yeah, not necessarily that, but the president did reach out to me. Yeah, he did. He tried to convince me to come and do the Dallas Marathon to attend their annual summit. And, I'm living in Virginia. I had never traveled to a race before. I'm like, I'm not flying out to Dallas. I'm not doing that hilly marathon. And it was on my birthday. But he was like, we'll cover your entry fee. You'll be, we'll take care of you. You'll be really great. And yeah, I ended up coming in fourth in that marathon for the women. And it gave me a lot of confidence. I felt more, confident about traveling to races, doing bigger races, just being at that summit and meeting so many people. Medka Flesky had actually spoken at that conference. I got to meet him. I learned a lot of historical information about people people of color in the sport and what they've done for marathoning and distance running. So it's a great organization to be a part of. So, so that's why I chose that one where I will donate 10% to their scholarship fund.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we talked kind of about how you got your start in marathoning sort of after college in New York. Yeah. And then you worked through triathlon. What has been, do you think, your favorite achievement? Like, I know you've won some marathons, but like, what's your favorite, best moment?
Probably, race-wise, probably Augusta in September.
Okay.
And I guess that's surprising to say because I have won sprints and stuff. Then again, after my crash, I did that sprint up in DC 2 months after my crash, and I won that. And it was like such a relief. I felt like, oh, okay, I'm back. But I wouldn't say that's a great achievement. So yeah, maybe Augusta, like really pulling myself out of a dark spot. I mean, I definitely went through some depression after my crash. My face, I wasn't sure if I was ever going to look the same again. And I just was so fatigued all the time. My body was trying to repair itself. I was working and, it was just, it just sucked. So to be able to still get myself back into shape, to not quit, to, keep going, and then to get down to Augusta, have my family there, and not only get through the race, but come so close to getting my pro card, missing top 3 by 3.5 minutes. And I had the fastest female amateur run split. So, it was like a lot of major milestones for me in that one race. So it gave me a lot of confidence, like, okay, I can bounce back. I can do this. And yeah. So maybe that one.
That's great. Yeah. I was about to ask you, what would you say was the hardest part too in your whole triathlon career? But it sounds like coming back from the accident just was the darkest, hardest.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was like every time I wanted to get back so bad, but I'd go out and I'd do a run, and you think when you're in the hospital after a crash and they tell you all your injuries, you're like, oh, okay, that's what I have to deal with. But no, it's when you start training again, then you're like, oh, this is off. I have these imbalances. I had to work with a strength conditioning coach to work on all sorts of things. I had to see massage therapists because I had done so much damage. I couldn't turn my head right, left. So I had to swim with a snorkel. And,
oh, man.
I couldn't swim. I couldn't swim at all at first because I had open wounds and I developed an infection. So I was on antibiotics, and it was just literally one thing after another. And it just felt like it was never going to end. I just felt like I was never going to be the same person again. Right. So to come back to a race and be, have a PR, be faster than I ever had, and a podium and everything else, it was just like, it was such a proud moment for me.
Oh, no, for sure. I mean, it's really hard to come back from crashes. Very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, usually I would ask people like what their plans are, but it's so hard right now to have any idea. It sounds like you're just going to kind of wait and see sort of what plays out.
Right.
But you're still focused on triathlon this year. You're not going to move on to something else.
No, well, I thought about doing a marathon in the fall if I can, because I'm doing more running now than I would normally do. So that would be pretty cool. I haven't done a marathon in a while. And fun fact is my marathon PR, I was trying to get under 3 hours and I ran 3 hours and 6 seconds. So my goal is to run 7 seconds faster. So
That's a good goal.
if I can do a marathon in the fall, that'd be pretty cool. But right now, my goal is still triathlon.
Right. I feel like you can run a 250 something. I feel confident about that.
Oh, I don't know. Gosh.
You need people to believe in you. I believe in you.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. Until I believe in me too, until I get to mile 20.
Right. And then you're like, ooh.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what was Kelly saying? Yeah, I don't think so.
We've been finishing with would you rathers for most of our guests. Okay. So here's my question for you. Would you rather do another Ironman and win it, or come in, fourth and just miss your top 3 in a 70.3? Because you said you never want to do another Ironman, but what if you could win it?
If I knew hands down, yeah, I'd put myself through all that to win it. Sure. Just to say I'm an Ironman winner. Yeah, I'd pick that.
Okay. So that's what it'll take to get you to.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. You can say never. I always said that I'd never do an Ironman, and there I was at Kona in October. So who knows? Who knows what the future holds?
That is probably very accurate right now. Who knows what the future holds?
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us, Sika, and good luck with everything.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks to Sika and Chris for chatting. Thanks to all of you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to have fun.